Good time of day, guys! My name is Godzi, and welcome back to another episode of Saya no Uta. Last episode, we started this game, and oh my god, it is crazy. It is very, very messy. Lots of gore and blood and guts and creepy shit. And, of course, funnily enough, the most human thing possible, sex, is the only thing that I actually had to censor, because, I don't know. I don't know, but, oh well, yeah, we got introduced to this crazy, I'd say crazy world, but more just crazy way of viewing the world, and our main man, Fuminori, who's an asshole, but an understandable one, as he fucking just laid into his friend, or I guess not friend, because he doesn't like her, because he doesn't like her, and she looks like a creepy monster to him, so I don't really blame him. But yeah, I get the feeling, especially since this VN is pretty short, shit's probably gonna go down sooner than I expect. So if shit hasn't already technically gone down, it's probably going down, like, you know, soon. So yeah, I'm pretty sure the game audio's a little too loud, so I'm gonna turn that up a bit. And that should be good. Let's read. I feel awful, miserable, but also refreshed. I finally crossed the line. I knew it would come crashing down like this sooner or later. Having become unable to feel anything but disgust for other people, there was no way I could hope to maintain the relationships I had before the accident. Today's incident will definitely get back to Koji and Omi, and everyone will be convinced I've had a major change of character. Honestly, I don't care anymore. At least I probably won't be committed for this. I just need to avoid acting any stranger than I already have. If this puts a rift between me and the others, good. The thought of all the stress I'll avoid brings a smile to my lips. I'm fed up with them sticking their noses into my life. It's like they don't care that they make my gut turn just by being near me. I've been terrified of them up until now, but today I struck fear into one of them. In that sense, it's something of a relief, but I'm not entirely without remorse for what happened. The person I just demolished with the verbal equivalent of a nuclear bomb used to be my friend Yoh. Even if my senses don't believe it, my mind accepts the theory. I don't have any particular grudge against Yoh herself, and I didn't want to hurt her. In retrospect, perhaps I should have just ignored her outright. Yoh was an attractive girl. I certainly didn't think badly of her. To be honest, though, I was annoyed when Koji and Omi tried to stick us together. Felt like they were using us as entertainment, and Yoh seemed totally oblivious to the fact that she was dancing to their tune. Her cluelessness was irritating. I still feel like the game audio's too low. I'm gonna turn it up more. This should be good now. Still, I knew that none of them meant any harm. Back then, I didn't have any reason to hurt others just to get my way. If having a casual relationship with Yoh would keep our circle of friends together, I was willing to make that compromise. Now, however, there's no room in my heart for such forbearance. If merely talking to someone is an ordeal, then how can I be expected to show them kindness? These ruminations have left me exhausted. I want to return to Saya as soon as possible, but thinking about the packed trains and crowded downtown streets between here and home saps my spirit. Excuse me? Packed trains? Are you fucking like shoulder to shoulder with these creatures? Christ. Catching sight of a nearby bench, I sit down and close my eyes to the horrors of the world. I can't do anything about the stink or the noise, but at least I can calm my nerves enough to rest. Huh. When I regained consciousness in the T University hospital ward, the world was as dark as it is now. I had not yet recovered my sight, even though my eyes and optical nerves were undamaged. It must have been an after effect of the accident. Blindness was a shock, but now I know that my suffering then was nothing. After all, my senses of hearing, touch, taste, and smell were all fine at the time. The real horror began when my sight returned. Eesh. The one small mercy was that I was able to come to terms with the accident and my neurosurgery while still blind. I panicked when I first saw the nightmarish hospital and the blood-curdling shapes of the doctors and nurses, but I soon guessed the cause. It chills me to think of what might have happened if I had recovered my sight along with my consciousness. Suddenly awakening in what can only be described as hell, I would no doubt have lost my mind instantly. Soon, my disorder spread to the senses of touch, taste, and smell. As it turns out, sight exerts tremendous influence over the other four. The taste of my food, the feel of my bed sheets, the fragrance of my get-well flowers, all became as unbearably foul as my eyes said they should be. Jeez. Eventually, when even the doctors' voices became unrecognizable as human, I decided to kill myself. I didn't believe for a second that I could live in this new world. At least, not until I met Saya. One night, while thinking of a painless way to die, I found myself succumbing to sleep. Drifting between the nightmares of my dreams and the nightmare of reality, I didn't notice her enter my room. Hi. The next thing I knew, there was a face staring down at me from next to my bed. The face was not covered in pus or slime or earthworm-like feelers. It had smooth white cheeks, round eyes, a lovely little nose, all things I had never expected to see again. The face was that of a girl, undeniably human and positively glowing with beauty. I sighed. That's not right. I sighed in admiration, savoring the first peace and joy since regaining my sight. She had not expected such a reaction, apparently. "Aren't you afraid of me?" she asked. Looking at the clock, I saw that it was exactly 3 in the morning. No time for a young girl to be alone in the hospital. Perhaps she expected me to mistake her for a ghost. But I would not have cared if she had been a ghost. Either way, she was a godsend. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "I'm Saya. I'm looking for my dad." I assumed that she was the daughter of a late shift doctor or another patient. It was unusual, but not unthinkable for such a girl to be wandering around the hospital. "It's no fun if you're not scared." "Wait!" I cried, desperate to keep her from leaving. It was only after she turned around that I realized I hadn't thought of what to say next. "Well?" Her beautiful eyes drew me in, healing my soul to its core. Through the white haze clouding my mind, I struggled to form a coherent sentence. "I shouldn't do this to a girl, but you're the only one I can ask." No longer concerned with propriety, I let the words come as they willed. "Will you let me hold your hand?" Saya looked confused at first, but then she smiled like she just found a new toy. Her smile was brighter than my memories of the sun. "You're strange," she said, holding out her slender white hand. "No one's asked me anything like that before." Ever so carefully, as though catching snowflakes, I placed my palm against hers. Oops. I could feel her human warmth and the softness of her delicate fingers. She was there, just beyond the palm of my hand. Thinking back on the joyful tears I shed then, I know that this is the moment I was saved from my fate. This is the first time in weeks that I've touched someone and felt them as human. Huh? I can't touch anyone else. I was in an accident, and as a side effect of the surgery, I can't see people as human anymore. How mysterious. "You're interesting," she said, winding her fingers gently around mine. "Can I come back tomorrow night?" "Yes, of course! But are you sure it's okay?" "Don't worry," she replied. "The night belongs to me." Okay, whatever that means. And so our rendezvous began. Saya came to my room every night at 3 a.m., skillfully taking advantage of the duty nurse's shift change. I was astonished to learn that she was living inside the hospital. Oh. "It's so big that I never run out of places to hide," she said, answering my surprise with a nonchalant smile. She had been living in the suburbs with her father, she told me, until one day he'd suddenly stopped coming home. Oh. After she had tired of waiting, Saya had decided one night to sneak into the hospital where he'd worked. And there she'd lived for over 2 months, searching for his whereabouts all the while. Don't you have to go to school? No, Dad taught me everything I need to know. I'm really smart. She was a strange girl. On the one hand, she looked and acted like a child. On the other, she was remarkably self-reliant, and at times exhibited a sharp intelligence and deep knowledge that many may have found unsettling. I didn't care. Saya was the only other human in a world gone mad. Her existence meant far more to me than the standards of society. Aren't you worried you might get caught? Nope, I don't have to worry about food here, and it's a lot more fun than staying in Dad's house by myself. I looked through the patient lists and found the ones who have mental problems, Saya continued, grinning mischievously. Sometimes I sneak into the rooms late at night and scare them. Even if they raise a fuss, no one believes what mental patients say. They just brush it off as a bad dream. Okay, that's not messed up, but okay. Her confession reminded me that the hospital was famous for its ghost stories. Who could have imagined that there was actually a real girl impishly roaming these hallways? So that's why you came to my room the first time? Yeah, sorry. Are you mad? While her pranks were hardly praiseworthy, I couldn't bring myself to scold her for the very thing that had brought us together. You shouldn't do it anymore. Will you come talk to me instead? Yeah, that's more fun for me too. Ah! With extreme care, I was able to conceal my sensory disorder. Right, because you'd be in a hospital bed. Okay. It was glaringly obvious that the doctors had no way to cure me, and the fact that I had undergone a still experimental procedure made me even more cautious. As a medical student, it was easy for me to imagine how the doctors would react if they discovered that I was exhibiting such unusual side effects. I was not about to become a guinea pig, a mere specimen to be examined with clinical detachment. And so I hid my discomfort and loathing behind a mask of normalcy, convincing the doctors that any signs of stress were merely a result of hospitalization. Saya was my support. Looking forward to her nightly visits gave me the strength to endure my daily torture. Hope can make an enormous difference in a patient's progress. With the aid of my secret nurse, I recovered at a pace that left the doctors stunned. Nice. On the last night before my release, I summoned my courage and asked her, "Are you going to stay here forever?" Yeah, I couldn't learn anything about my dad, but it's not like I have anywhere else to go. I guess I'll stay as long as I can hide. In other words, there was nothing keeping her there. Well, why not stay with me? I asked timidly. The question took all the courage I had. Huh? My family's gone, so I have plenty of room. You won't need to hide, and it's not a bad place to live. You want me to live with you? I was too afraid to ask her what she thought of that, so I hastily offered a deal. In exchange, I'll help you look for your father. I'll find him no matter what. I think that's gonna be hard, Saya said, looking a little embarrassed. Dad probably did something bad and had to leave the hospital. We can't get the police involved. You'll have to be as discreet as possible. I'll do whatever it takes. Unable to control myself, I finally spoke the truth. I can't be apart from you. At first she looked bewildered, but after a few moments of silence, she said, "Give me a little time." That night, she left my room earlier than usual. On the day of my release, I managed to smile as I accepted the hideous, foul-smelling celebratory bouquet. The flesh beasts calling themselves Koji, Omi, and Yoh came to pick me up. Though they had come to see me many times during my stay, it never got easier to see my friends change so horribly. My sudden tears of despair drew suspicion, but I managed to explain them away as tears of joy. While we walked to Koji's car, I looked desperately for Saya amid the grotesque scenery. Even as we drove away, I kept watching the hospital fade into the distance, praying for a last glimmer of hope. But Saya never appeared. After Koji and the others dropped me off, I paused a while to regard my surroundings. I had lived my entire life on this block, in this house. There was no other place that I could call home. But nothing was as I remembered. As I walked up the path to the front door and took in the yard where I'd spent my childhood, I could feel those memories being defiled by the twisted, festering shapes around me. Inside the house, I found nothing familiar, nothing to offer me comfort and warmth. What I had once called home was now a whole other world. I have no home, I whispered with a smile of self-pity. There was one last stop to make, one last nail to hammer into my coffin. Oh. I stepped into the room that had cradled me from childhood. The walls were papered with human entrails, the bed a tangled mass of worm flesh. But none of that mattered. There, curled up on the bed like an abandoned cat, was Saya. As I stood there in shock, she looked up at me and in a tiny, weak voice said, "Can I really stay?" Okay, I just realized something. Crack theory time. Okay, how do I word this? Since Fuminori, Saya's the only thing, even, that's not covered in paint that he can recognize as not a mass of flesh. And he described the walls as looking like human entrails. So that makes me think he wouldn't notice any, like, bad things, like actual human bodies, right? Or would it appear as a dead flesh beast? Or, like, I don't know, if Saya had a gun or something, I don't know. I'm just shooting out crack theories. I don't fully trust her yet. If she had a weapon or something, and it was just in the living room or something, he wouldn't see it. It would just be flesh. Like, if she had a fucking sniper rifle or some shit, I don't know. Just food for thought, I guess. I don't know what that could entail, but there's probably gonna be some sort of detail that's hidden from him. I don't know. I responded by sweeping her into my arms, embracing her tightly so that she would not escape. Saya did not resist. Okay. Oh shit. And what I was afraid of. Hi, Omi. When she arrives at the Sakisaka house, Omi first takes a deep breath to calm herself. Her anger does not vanish entirely, of course, but at least now she can hear herself think. While waiting for a response from the intercom, she looks over the patch of yard that she can see from outside the gate. Even Omi isn't normally one to complain about other people's housekeeping, but this is going too far. The grass is growing wild, and there are piles of dead leaves scattered everywhere. It doesn't just look untended, it looks like an uninhabited ruin. Well, you kinda can't do much about that. It's still light out, but every window has its storm shutters tightly sealed. Omi guesses that they've been closed since morning. What kind of life is Fuminori leading? Even if he's living alone, he can't neglect his housework forever. Fuck you, I don't have to mow my lawn, bitch! And is it just her imagination? Or does something stink like rotten meat? What was I just saying? It couldn't be coming from the yard, could it? There's still no response, so she presses the buzzer a second time, and a third, and a fourth. Finally, after this has gone on for over 10 minutes, Omi loses her patience and opens the cover of the intercom. As she expected, the power had been disconnected. Perhaps Fuminori has a good reason for shutting out the world, but Omi can only see it as a lack of respect for others. Fuminori wouldn't have been able to do that, though. He wouldn't have been able to disconnect that. Because it's just flesh to him, unless he did it on accident. Like, oops, I knocked over... I think that's where the intercom was. But, oh well, it totally wasn't him, and Saya did that. For some reason. Her anger rekindled. She pushes the gate open and stomps through the yard to the front door. Given the state of his intercom, she doubts that Fuminori will respond to a knock. So Omi decides to just open the door and go in shouting. Oh boy. And if the door is locked, she'll just have to. Surprisingly, the doorknob turns easily in her hand, and the enraged Omi finds herself throwing the door open wider than she intended. Her nostrils are instantly assaulted by a choking stench. I fucking knew it. I knew there'd be something in here. Something that Saya did that Fuminori can't notice. What is that smell? As Omi stands petrified on the threshold, the cowbell hanging on the inside of the door chimes loudly. A moment later... Welcome home! Omi can't believe her ears. Oh, wait. Or... he sees Saya as human, everyone else sees her as a flesh beast? That'd be weird then. Omi can't believe her ears. The voice she just heard could not have been human, yet its intonations were too complex for any animal she can imagine. Is someone there? She calls out to the end of the hallway from which the voice came. There is no response. Instead, she hears the sound of something soft and wet flopping its way deeper into the house. Finding it difficult to place a meaningful image to the voice she just heard, Omi stares blankly at the empty vestibule. Oh, shit, then. Actually, if Saya does appear as a flesh beast to people, maybe she doesn't know it, one. But two, that would make her, scaring people in the hospital a little bit more fucky-bucky, you know? Oh, shit. There's nothing there, not even Fuminori's shoes, which can only mean that he's still outside somewhere, wearing them. The house should be empty. But then what was that voice just now? Her anger has vanished as if it were never there. Nevertheless, Omi sets foot into the hallway, leaving the door open so that the cowbell won't ring. The floor creaks, setting her nerves on edge. Omi isn't sure why she's acting like a burglar, but something tells her to make as little noise as possible. The potency of the stink inside the house makes the whiff she caught outside pale in comparison. It's sickening, like rotten fish guts. Has food been left to spoil in the kitchen? She hears a bubbling sound up ahead. Stepping gingerly on the creaking floorboards, Omi makes her way to the end of the hallway. She finds rooms to both sides of her, one lit, the other dark. She chooses to look into the lit room. It's the kitchen, lit by what must be the only window in the house not covered by a storm shutter. The sound she heard was the pot boiling on the stove, and on the chopping board next to it lie a butcher's knife and some half-diced carrots. A perfectly normal household scene, with the light of the setting sun making everything the color of decomposing fruit. Something is wrong. Who was cooking here, and where did they go? Is anyone here? Omi calls, regretting it immediately as she realizes that her voice is shaking. As her words echo vainly through the silent house, she begins to feel foolish and defenseless. Suddenly, she feels something cold seeping through her pantyhose. She timidly reaches down to touch her feet. Her fingertips come away covered with a viscous, olive-green slime. Ugh. Like the filthy water from a tank long clogged with algae and dead fish. The whole floor is covered with it. It must be the source of the stench. Omi now wishes that she had worn her shoes inside, manners be damned. Oh, she meant the bottom of her foot. Okay. When she looks back ruefully the way she came, she realizes that her current position is not visible from the entrance. This kitchen must be where that strange voice came from. Look to your left. The next room is probably the den. As she expected from the closed storm shutters, it's pitch black inside. Omi wants nothing more than to flee this house, but that would mean turning her back to the darkness. And that she simply cannot bring herself to do. Moved by some irrational compulsion, Omi sets foot into the den. It is too dark to see anything, and the stink is far worse than before. She slides her hand along the wall, feeling for the light switch. Finding it much sooner than she expected, she flips it on like it's her last hope. The colors. The colors. So many colors. Art project living room. Yay. She got the rest of the room done. That's cool. The purple of entrails. The brown of rotten meat. The crimson of fresh blood. The yellow of fat. These colors, and more that cannot be described, cover every inch of the room in a maddening array. The colors say all that needs to be said about the painter's hatred, malice, and insanity. Omi's legs give out from the shock, sending her to the floor. Slime immediately soaks through her jeans, its cold tendrils creeping up her legs, crotch, and her neck. Oh shit. Her hand flies to her neck, where it is greeted by another drop of chilly slime. Above her, something is dripping down on her head. Oh boy. Making perhaps the worst decision of her life, Omi looks up. The predator clinging to the ceiling, poised to leap upon its prey. She sees it in every detail. Oh fuck. Well, I figured you were gonna die. I didn't think it'd be I'm assuming Saya, though. Jeez. Her mouth and nose are sealed before she can scream, and her belly is torn open as something enters to feast on her innards. But by the time she feels any of this, Omi has already gone mad. Going home. I bit the bullet and tried to take the train, but the rush hour crowds were so bad that I had to get off halfway and walk. I'm running pretty late. Is Saya worried? I hope she's not mad. When I enter the yard, I realize that the front door has been left wide open. No, it hasn't. Look at that background. It's sealed shut. Light from the living room is seeping out into the hallway. How does light work? Like, flesh that just, shows light? What does the sun look like to you? And the moon and the stars? Like, jeez. Light from the living room is seeping out into the hallway, and I hear what sounds like someone smacking their lips. There's also a tantalizing fragrance in the air. Is it Saya? I consider calling out to her, but decide to enter in silence instead. Oh shit, I just realized something again. If she is like an actual real-life flesh beast or whatever, that explains why she doesn't eat with him, because she can't eat regular people food. She probably eats people as food. Something smells strange, though not unpleasant. The aroma is quite soothing, in fact. It reminds me of Saya's hair. At first, I'm surprised by what I see in the living room. The floor is covered with what looks to be some kind of grass, probably the source of the herb-like smell, and there are fruit or vegetable-like balls of varying size scattered everywhere. Hi! Saya? Ah! Saya turns around, her eyes wide with surprise. She's eating Omi, no surprise. I'm assuming that's Omi, at least. She then looks away sheepishly, like a child caught at some prank. What are you eating? This is, well... She stammers, so flustered that I suddenly feel bad for sneaking up on her. Remembering that she has never eaten in front of me before, I realize that she must be quite embarrassed. Can I have one? I scoop up the closest fruit thing and pop it into my mouth, ignoring Saya's attempt to wave me off. It has a strange texture, soft and pliable, like a peach or a pear. When I bite into it with my back teeth, a succulent juice fills my mouth, combined with a sharp, strong fragrance. It's unlike anything I've ever tasted. How did you make this? What did you use? It wasn't hard. I just took it apart and melted it a little to make it easier to eat. It's practically raw. Oh? I pick up a different lump. This one consisting of fruity flesh around a hard core. Tearing a chunk off in my mouth, I find that it has a similar taste to the last one. Involuntary cannibalism. Hey, are you okay? That's a... Yeah, even I can eat this. In fact, it's good! Really? At first, Saya looks dumbstruck, but then she bursts out laughing. So this is what you like. Now I feel stupid for going to all that trouble. Is this what you always eat, Saya? Yeah, though it's been a while since I've had one so big. I usually catch them in the nearby park. There's an impressive nature preserve not too far from here. I've never heard about fruits like these growing there. But, well, of course, they only look like fruits to me. They're really something else. Oh, so you take children! Oh, shit! I just realized what that meant. Fuck. Sorry, I already ate the best parts. That's okay. There's always next time. And now we can eat together. Yeah! Saya seems really happy. I'm happy too, of course. Eating with someone is much more fun than eating alone. And it makes the food taste better too. There's still plenty left. It'll keep chilled for 2 or 3 days, though it won't taste as good. Then we better start putting it away. Sealing the small fruits in Tupperware and the large ones in pots and bowls, Saya and I store the remaining food in the refrigerator. Thinking of tomorrow's dinner fills me with anticipation. So does the refrigerator still emit cold for you? And the oven still emit heat? It's just like, hot flesh, geez, does it cook itself? Like, I feel that little by little I'm starting to regain the joy of living. Saya will guide me. With her, I can live on. Yeah, dude. Okay. True Scary Stories, Hospital Edition. Chapter 4, The Monster in the Hospital. A medical student relates his shocking experiences. Will you believe him or not? Strange things started happening at the hospital around the end of last spring. It began with patients waking up in the middle of the night, screaming. They all spoke of terrifying nightmares, and many of them had to be sedated. Some patients even transferred to other hospitals because of it. The weird thing was that they'd all had exactly the same dream. A dream about some horribly disgusting monster staring down at them from their bedside. Yep. But the really strange stuff started happening after that. There used to be a lot of stray cats around campus, looking for scraps from the students. One day, oh no, she eats cats then? Huh. One day, the cats suddenly disappeared, and it wasn't that they'd stopped coming. It was more like they'd vanished from the area entirely. And then people stopped walking their dogs around. According to rumors, the dogs were refusing to go anywhere near the school. Eventually, things started going missing in the hospital. Organs, to be precise. There's plenty to eat, as she said. Transplant organs kept disappearing from storage. People came close to losing their jobs over it. And it wasn't just 2 or 3 times that it happened. They tried to keep it from the students, but we heard it was a lot worse than that. People started saying that there was something living in the hospital. The janitors would find strange messes that could only have been made in the middle of the night. Traces of something that had crawled down the hallway, or weird stains caused by something dripping through the ceiling. The late shift nurses talked about hearing strange noises on the same nights that patients woke screaming. There's one last story, one that you can never mention inside the hospital. One day, the obstetrics department went crazy. They said that a newborn had disappeared in the night. Fucking Jesus Christ. If that were true, the police would have come and it would have been all over the news. But they say the big shots managed to make it all go away. It's just a rumor, of course. These strange incidents suddenly stopped toward the end of summer. Now there are almost no patients complaining of nightmares, and the cats have started coming back to campus. But still, what happened in the hospital that summer? Even now, just thinking about it gives me the creeps. Huh. I wonder. I'm just gonna assume Koji trying to contact Omi. Nothing. This is the third day in the row. Oh, this is the third day in a row that they haven't been able to get in touch with Omi. There's no sign that she returned to her apartment, and even her family doesn't know anything. Her parents have already filed a missing persons report. Well, you know her. She'll probably just pop up somewhere like nothing happened. Oh, other way around. Oops, I'll just reread that. Well, you know her. She'll probably just pop up somewhere like nothing happened. I hope so, Yoh replies with a gloomy expression. She's worried about Omi, of course, but the incident with Fuminori 3 days ago must still be weighing on her as well. Yoh hasn't seen Fuminori since then, and Fuminori hasn't made any effort to approach her or Koji. 4 people used to meet in this cafeteria between classes, but now there are only 2. Hey, Koji, let's keep thinking. Isn't there somewhere Omi might have gone? No, Koji answers evasively. I already checked everywhere. It's a lie, of course. Koji knows where Omi planned to go that evening, but he doesn't want to bring Fuminori up in front of Yoh. Their awkward silence is mercifully broken by the bell signaling the start of the next period. Well, I've gotta go. Yeah. Unless Koji is mistaken, Yoh is supposed to have class next period too, but she just sits there, staring off into space. Unable to come up with anything to say, he leaves the cafeteria reluctantly. Both Omi's disappearance and Yoh's depression worry Koji, and both problems lead back to the exact same place. What the hell is Fuminori doing? When Omi went missing, the first thing he did was question Fuminori. After all, the last time he'd seen her was just before she stormed off to give Fuminori a piece of her mind. Fuminori responded with unequivocal denial, and acted like he hadn't the slightest idea why Omi would have gone to see him. Perhaps that was only natural, as he was unaware that Omi and Koji had witnessed him reduce Yoh to tears. Did Omi even make it to Fuminori's house? She had been riding a wave of emotion when she'd left. She might have calmed down and changed her mind halfway there. Or perhaps she ran into trouble on the way? Koji concluded, or more accurately, convinced himself that one of these possibilities was the truth, subconsciously denying the one remaining possibility, that Fuminori was lying, that he had met Omi and was involved with her disappearance. When questioned by the police, Koji told the truth about Omi's destination only up to the train station, maintaining that he had no idea where she'd planned to go after that. He wanted to cooperate with the search, of course, but Omi couldn't have made it to Fuminori's house. Fuminori said so himself, didn't he? In that case, he told the police everything they needed to know. Not wanting to get the still fragile Fuminori involved, he forced himself to accept this flimsy logic. But the conflict is built up inside of him without his notice, leaving unanswered suspicion to fester in his mind. Koji is deep in thought, paying no attention to his surroundings, but perhaps this is what allows him to catch sight of his friends back through the crowd of milling students. Yeah? Fuminori? At first, Koji assumes that he's headed to the lecture hall, but it soon appears that he is instead going home. Strange. Medical students have required courses in the afternoon. Though he is initially surprised, Koji's hesitation lasts only for a second. He follows his friend, taking care to stay far enough behind that he won't be noticed. Okay. Fuminori wasn't going home, as became obvious when he boarded a train heading in the opposite direction. Koji's next guess was that he was going to see his doctor at the T University Hospital, but Fuminori rode straight through the closest station. Where is he going? At first, Koji felt ashamed for tailing his friend like this, but his conscience fell silent as Fuminori's actions grew more mysterious. Excuse me. The stranger it gets, the closer Koji feels to discovering the truth behind Fuminori's sudden transformation. Any knowledge would be welcome, no matter how slight. Even Koji is beginning to think that there must be more behind Fuminori's change than the accident alone. He wants a more satisfying answer, one that will help him decide whether Fuminori can still be trusted. Fuminori gets off at a small station in a nondescript suburb of Tokyo. Koji follows, trying not to lose sight of him amid the other disembarking passengers. The area is quite desolate, with only a small bookstore, a convenience store, and a market in front of the train station. It's easy for Koji to keep Fuminori in view. This neighborhood was carved out of the Fuji foothills, and here and there remain steep inclines and wooded areas that escaped assimilation. Koji is amazed that such a quiet place exists less than an hour out of central Tokyo. Fuminori seems to know these streets. He moves quickly and purposefully through the suburban community, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Before long, Fuminori reaches a house. Without ringing the bell or even knocking, he opens the door and vanishes inside, leaving Koji to wonder how Fuminori can treat the house as his own. After waiting to see if Fuminori comes back out, Koji approaches the gate and checks the nameplate. Ogai, it reads. I figured that much. Koji has never heard of anyone by that name among Fuminori's acquaintances. Next, his attention is drawn to the thick wad of leaflets sticking out of the mail slot. This, coupled with the general dilapidated feel of the place, suggests that it had been abandoned for some time. A small playground about 2 blocks away provides an adequate vantage point from which to watch the front of the Ogai home. Fortunately, it does not appear to be the sort of house that has a rear exit. Koji settles down on a bench to begin his stakeout. I should have brought more smokes. 1 hour passes, and then another, but there remains no sign of movement around the Ogai residence. Soon, twilight settles upon the neighborhood. After Koji's 1 pack of cigarettes runs out, the stakeout becomes a battle against morning impatience. He kills time by redialing Omi on his cell and sending her short text messages, but his efforts are futile as he knew they would be. When the sky begins to turn deep blue and the streetlights come on, Fuminori finally emerges from the house and heads back toward the station with the same hurried stride. After some brief consideration, Koji decides that right now, investigating the house is more important than tailing Fuminori. He rings the doorbell just to make sure. After receiving the expected silence in response, he checks to make sure no one is watching and turns the doorknob. The door is not locked. Is he also gonna die? That'd be fun. The moment he enters the house, stale air thick with mold and dust fills Koji's nostrils. It is the unmistakable smell of a house that has long lain untouched. There is also a faint hint of something else in the air. Something reminiscent of damp sewers and fetid cisterns. Flipping the light switch does nothing. The power must be cut off. Koji uses his cigarette lighter to illuminate the immediate area. In the thick dust covering the floor, he sees several brand new trails of footprints that could only have been made by shoes, Fuminori's. Koji decides to follow suit and dispense with courtesy. He enters with his shoes on. The lighter's flickering flame pushes back the deathly silence and gloom of the house. Koji is surprised to see evidence of life remaining. Everything from furniture to tableware and appliances. Nothing seems to be missing. The thickness of the dust suggests the house has been empty for several months, which means that the owner must have left with little more than the clothes on his back. Could he have gone on a long vacation? The calendar in the den is still turned to April. Empty and silent, yet still exhibiting signs of the life that was once lived there. The house reminds Koji of a passenger ship entombed at the bottom of the sea. In the graveyard-like quiet, a sinister thought suddenly enters his mind. No one is living here, but that does not have to mean that the owner left. Maybe he was murdered, and his rotting corpse is right under Koji's feet. He finds himself wanting a stronger light. A flashlight in his hand would make him feel much better. Koji follows Fuminori's footsteps to the 2nd floor, where he begins to catch the scent of paper in the stale air. It is the smell of old books, instantly recognizable to anyone who has worked in an antique bookstore or library. The first room on the 2nd floor turns out to be a study, its towering shelves packed with such a vast number of books that Koji fears for the stability of the floor. As a medical student himself, he is able to discern at a glance that this study belongs to a medical professional, and a high-level one at that. Judging by the content of the books, a smorgasbord of technical volumes far beyond a simple student's understanding, the owner's interests lie more with medical research than with clinical practice. Fuminori must have spent most of his time here. The scattered dust suggests that he was searching for something, and the contents of the desk drawers are in obvious disarray. A small pile of books stacked on the side table catches his eye. Being next to the desk, They must have been the most frequently read. Their nature could shed some light on the character of the person who worked here. Koji frowns as he examines the 3 books. These aren't scientific texts like the rest, but old, leather-bound Western tomes like the sort you would find in a rare bookstore. The titles are meaningless to him. Oh, fuck. Traité des Chiffres appears to contain semiotics, but Ars Magna et Ultima is some kind of treatise on divination? And then there's the Voynich manuscript, which looks like some sort of picture book. When he pages through it, he finds the text utterly incomprehensible. Maybe it's some kind of cipher. Whatever they are, they clearly have nothing to do with medicine, refuting Koji's earlier guess that this O guy was a doctor. Looking down, Koji suddenly notices the glint of something black and metallic underneath the chair. A pocket-sized flashlight, quite out of place among all these dusty books. Fuminori must have brought it in. How is he able to use a flashlight? Like, Christ. With relief, Koji exchanges his lighter for the flashlight. Its tiny body emits a powerful white beam that casts away the darkness. His courage restored, he decides to explore the rest of the house. Koji notices something strange. Something that was not visible in the lighter's weak flame. The slime. Oh, you're dead, yep. Dark, oily stains are everywhere. The stains are especially thick around the doorknobs and stair banisters, like someone grasped them with hands wrapped in greasy cloth. Looking closer, he sees places where slime was splashed low on the walls, almost as if a wet mop was run violently across the floor. Could Ogai have made these marks? If so, how? Koji begins to feel sick as he imagines a man shambling through the house with slime dripping from his body. Finding the bedroom next to the study, Koji checks the closet on a hunch. He discovers 2 empty suitcases, not what one would leave behind when going on a long vacation. A sudden chill runs through him. Whoever was living here is still somewhere inside the house. Suppressing the urge to flee, Koji goes back downstairs to check the first floor. If he finds a corpse, he'll have to call the police right away. He might get away with trespassing if he reports it first, but if they find the body later, it'll be awfully hard to explain his fingerprints all over the house. The flashlight reveals the den to be covered in even more slime than the rest of the house. The sofa looks as though it was dredged from the bottom of a swamp. In the kitchen, Koji takes one look at the sink and decides not to get any closer. He doesn't want any more fuel for his imagination. He reaches the door to the bathroom. A common scene from TV dramas flashes through his head. A body with slit wrists floating in a bathtub full of water. And wasn't there a movie where a hitman disposes of his victim in a bathtub filled with lye? Koji braces himself for the worst and opens the door slowly, then shines his light into the ceramic bathtub that appears from the darkness like a white ghost. Bones. A mountain of bones, black with dry flesh and blood. Koji puts one hand against the wall to steady himself as his legs threaten to buckle. Something is wrong. He realizes as he tries desperately to get his thoughts in order. The bones are too small, and there are too many of them. They aren't human. Oh, you're toast, bro. After taking several deep breaths to calm himself, Koji enters the bathroom and examines the tub. The bones are piled atop each other like fallen leaves. They appear to be from small animals, perhaps cats or dogs. Even so, the quantity is mind-boggling. How many bodies would it take to produce this many bones? The bones have all been separated from one another, so it doesn't look like bodies were just thrown into the tub and left to rot. Each bone is covered with deep grooves, marks left by teeth biting through flesh. Koji's sanity won't let him consider the possibility that a human could have done this. The owner of this house must have kept some sort of carnivorous animal as a pet, giving it the bones of small animals to eat and disposing of the remains in the bathtub. But why not dispose of the leftovers properly? They could have just been thrown out with the garbage. Or was there something keeping him from leaving the house? The relief Koji felt when he realized that the bones weren't human is once again under attack. In the first place, what the hell was Fuminori doing here? Oh, I wonder. What's wrong, Koji? Koji whirls around, his light revealing Fuminori's expressionless face. You're trespassing. So are you, Koji replies, barely managing to speak over the pounding of his heart. Fuminori pushes past Koji and looks into the bathtub. He doesn't even flinch at the sight of the bones. A friend of mine lives here. I'm just running an errand. What? Who is this person? Where did you meet them? Koji doesn't want to believe that the old, friendly Fuminori could have had contact with the denizens of this house. I'll introduce you one of these days, he says, turning to leave without even a glance at Koji. I owe her my life. Hey, Fuminori! Koji runs after Fuminori. His heart is finally beating normally again. Wait, is this friend of yours the reason you've been acting so strange? Standing in the entrance, Fuminori glares coldly at Koji over his shoulder. The utter lack of emotion in his eyes gives Koji pause. You followed me, didn't you? Koji swallows. What can he say? You're starting to bother me, Koji. Don't do it again. Fine. Fuminori walks away without another word, leaving Koji alone in the entrance. Up until this very moment, concern for his friend was still at the forefront of his mind. Now, however, that concern is swiftly giving way to a growing sense of dread. Does the Fuminori he knew no longer exist? Was the person who just stared Koji down an imposter wearing Fuminori's skin? Oop! I won't do that. I refuse. I refuse to give in to the joke. Koji has begun to believe that it might be so. Okay, I think I'm gonna end things here, because honestly I wasn't able to record for a while today for reasons that aren't relevant, and it's almost 9 p.m., so I think I'm just gonna end things here. It's a little under an hour, but that's good enough, right? I think, yeah, probably. But yeah, I'm still really enjoying this. This is really cool, and I like how I basically immediately called what Saya was doing, doing some shady shit right before they revealed she's doing some shady shit, so yay! Either way, that's gonna be it for this episode, guys. If you liked it, then be sure to press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye!